Life Audio.
Today on Talk About That, John gets a fancy new watch and helps me confront a scammer on the phone. Meanwhile, I write a new jingle for a prescription drug and take credit for a friend's Grammy nomination. Plus, a conversation about self-awareness and why understanding yourself is part of understanding the gospel. Today's episode is not sponsored by duvets, for people who love their comforter, but only if it's wadded up inside of another comforter. But first, a word from our actual sponsor.
Jonnie, it's a cold one. Let's talk about that. Man, it's frigid.
Pop open a cold one. That's not. That could mean anything, though. It used to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I pop open a cold one, it's just soda.
Right.
But everybody imagines beer when you say pop open a cold one, right?
Yeah, we were talking about
I don't like the way they've monopolized the whole...
Yeah,
you know
no kidding.
I mean?
When someone said that today. It's the second time I've heard it today.
Have
because we were talking about Lent.
Yeah.
And how, like, on Easter Sunday is the ending of Lent. And, like, someone was like, yeah, I could hear him popping open a cold one right there in the sanctuary. And I was like, that's a funny idea. We all come and break our fast on purpose together. But.
I realized the other day, well, not the other day, but somebody... When you think of breakfast, that's when you break your fast. You're having breakfast. It's just kind of, it's one of those words that like has like it means exactly what it is. You're breaking your fast.
Yeah.
I think I get a lot of credit for fasting when I was just laying, stationary for 9 hours.
Yeah, calling it a fast.
Yeah.
That's
right,
judicious.
And I did say 9 hours. If I don't get my... If I don't get my 9 to 12 hours, John, I am hard to deal with. I try to catch up when I'm home because when I'm doing road stuff, you have to get up at like 4 a.m. to go make a flight. So when I get back, if I have a day off, I'm like, I'm sleeping in, and then I can't do it. I'll wake up at 7 or 8, no matter what. It's just you got to fight. Then I get up and I break my fast.
I have a new watch that I got from my mother-in-law.
You showed it to me, and here's what you did though. You did the thing where you go, I don't need to have an Apple Watch where it's just constantly doing all this. He goes, plus this watch, and he shows me all these features. It's like a regular looking watch, but then it's got the digital thing in the middle where it's got
you touch a button,
heart rate, all that stuff. And I go, well, yeah, I bought my Apple Watch too. But you were kind of like saying, like, I don't need all the stuff you have distracting me.
I don't. I had an Apple Watch.
But then you showed me all the stuff that this does.
But my watch doesn't buzz all day.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't get notifications. I just check it.
But I think you think you're better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. You don't have to finish the sentence.
Okay. Okay.
That's not even about the watch.
Yeah.
No, the watch, like, what it does that I wanted to know is, do I have sleep apnea?
Oh, does it do that?
Well, it will tell you, disturbances it will detect.
Okay.
And I'm not getting any sleep. But it also tell you how long you spend in REM and all that. And so that's...
well, I don't know how it really can do that, but okay.
Well,
if you believe that something on your wrist would... Plus, you don't want to wear a watch on your wrist all night.
I think it's heart rate.
When do you have to charge it?
It charges like every 2 weeks. It holds a charge a long time.
Okay, well, that's good compared to the Apple Watch.
And it looks, again, it's got actual hands.
If the Apple Watch is a sponsor today, I'm going to be so happy. That'd be a good haul for us. That's not a...
Yeah, that'd be...
No slouch of a sponsor. Come on,
Apple. We use a
Apple.
lot of Apple products. We're recording this on an Apple product.
That's true.
Looking at Apple products.
Yeah.
Probably thinking about it.
While you besmirch my Apple product.
Again, I had one. I just want to be free. This other thing already buzzes. I want it buzzing in both hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That is one of the few conspiracies, I think I've talked about on the show before, but it's one of the few conspiracies I do believe in, which is that Apple, if you have a watch or a phone, that they send it weird pulses throughout the day to make you interact with it that are just phantom pulses.
Interesting.
I've heard that before. Like if you have an Apple Watch and it goes, "Brr," and then you go, huh, and you look down and there's no new notification, but now you're like, well, while I'm here.
Yeah.
And you look at it for a few seconds.
Well, it's like my dog. We have the back door. We have a bell that he's supposed to ring to go out, but now he just hits it to get your attention. Because there's food on the counter
it's
or something.
It's like the bell on the counter at the hotel.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Hello?
It is. Yeah. Sometimes he just wants you to play. He'll just be like, he knows you'll walk over there. You open the door, he just looks at you like, I'm not going out there.
This dog has trained you.
That dog is, there's something about him. Hey, we just had a little incident right before this all started.
What?
And it was a phone call.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
Well, I've known this stuff is coming because with AI and everything, but this was like a good old-fashioned scam.
Yeah.
Because AI is getting creepy now. It's like, where are you? And creepy. By the way, that'd be weird.
If you haven't been to AI Crepey, the restaurant, it is so good.
This place gives me the crepes. That's what I've always wanted to have, a breakfast place that says this place gives me the crepes. I did think of one the other day, too, which was a ophthalmologist, but it's called Find, See If I Care. You like that?
I like it.
Okay, so I get a phone call, and like I said, AI, it's coming where I'm reading these stories about people who are getting like it's your grandma, and she's saying, "Wow, I need help," or like you call your grandma, it's her grandson. He goes, "I'm in jail. Yeah. I'm in Panama City. I'm in jail. I just need bail money. Can you send it to this address? Or here's the thing to send your," and then the grandma hears her grandson's voice and just gives the credit card number. Yeah. Then AI has generated that. So that's coming, and that's already out here. This was a good old-fashioned, like, let's use fear a little bit, because they did this thing of, I'm Officer so-and-so, you received a federal jury summons.
From Wilson County Sheriff.
From Wilson County Sheriff, which is our county.
Right.
They said, it's a federal jury summons that you were supposed to appear today. And I go, no. I didn't receive it. Immediately I felt bad. I was like, oh no, because I get a ton of mail, and then I just did it just fall through the cracks or whatever, and I didn't get it. They go, you signed for this. And I go, well, now I know it's not real.
Right.
I go, sir,
you still weren't real sure for
but I go, I didn't sign for anything, so somebody either signed my name, and it'll be cleared up. In other words, I don't feel afraid for my life now that I've violated a federal jury summons. I go, well, this is a mistake. Well, do you live at this? They had my address. I go, yeah. They go, well, you signed. I go, no, I didn't. And then immediately I start thinking, is this a scam? I go, what are you go, ask him his name. You were off to the side.
Yeah, they didn't know who they were up against.
John was being my Cyrano de Bergerac. He was like, ask his name. And so I guess if you were
He had you rattled.
I guess if you were Cyrano de Bergerac, you'd be trying to make him fall in love with me.
Wait.
So that's a different thing. Read this poem to him. That's not the same. But soft, what light through yonder? That's not right. It's a federal jury summons. Anyway, we went round and round, and then I kind of got the idea it was a scam, and I said, this feels like a scam. And I go, why did it say no caller ID when you called? And then he starts doing it. Well, we have to protect. We have a system we have to protect. Then I put him on speaker so you could hear what was going on. And then he said, well, look, I'm going to transfer you to so-and-so, and there's a fine, and there's a whatever, and then you'll be basically you'll be resummoned to reappear or something. And if you violate that, yada, yada. And I go, oh. And I go, well, this feels like a scam. And then he kept saying, no, we're recording this on a recorded line. And I go, I don't care. I said, this feels. So I hung up. Then he calls right back. It's no call.
Didn't he say, well, if you think it's a scam, you can hang up and the officers will serve you a warrant?
Right. Yeah. And so I go, fine. So I hung up, and then he calls right back, and he goes, do you think this is a game or something? He kind of gave me a little bit of a thing. And I said, I think this is a scam.
I think it's a game, yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, who is your supervisor? Because you asked me to ask him that question. John being Cyrano again. I go, who is your supervisor? John's my Karen, hanging around the corner. And he goes, my supervisor is Jeff Pembroke or whatever. And I go, Pembroke, okay. And then you're typing as I'm saying.
If it ain't Pembroke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and so you're typing this all in. That does sound like a cop name, though.
Yeah.
I'm Sergeant Jeff
Well,
Pembroke.
actually, what I started doing was looking up the actual Wilson County Sheriff's Department.
Right, to see
and
if
getting
the
them
number.
on the line.
Yeah, so anyway, I hung up again at some point. Oh, he did say also, he goes, well, I go, so this was a federal, he goes, yes, it was a federal trial for a juvenile who is accused of murder. This is a murder trial. And I go, okay. And immediately I thought, okay, well, I don't even know if he would know that. And you wouldn't tell somebody who just skated on jury duty, hey, you were supposed to be here for this murder trial.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. They don't give you that information until you get selected, right?
I don't know. I've never had jury duty.
So anyway, we hung up again, and he's not called back, but I really hope it was a scam, because otherwise I've hung up on the police department twice.
Well,
but I feel didn't you called Wilson
the sheriff's
County.
Department confirmed that there's no one by those names.
Oh, I see.
And that it's a scam.
Yeah.
And that they don't call if you missed your jury duty summons.
What would they do?
To tell,
I wonder what they would do.
They probably come serve something at your house or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they said, tell all your friends it's a scam and tell everybody.
So this is a public service that we're offering today. If you get a call and they say you've missed jury duty and you signed this saying you would be here and you're not here, they are trying to make you pay a fine or something over the phone, and you're going to... Don't do it.
Here's the thing. They didn't know who they were up against today. And the power of our bully pulpit.
John, if you hadn't been here, I would have just said, here's my wallet.
They had you rattled And so I was like, hey.
Well, I was just confused.
Right.
And you go, that's what they play on is
Exactly.
like my idea of like authority. An authority person just called me and said I broke a rule.
Yeah, I would have been rattled too. Yeah.
Yeah, they go, you didn't follow the rules. You go, no, I love rules. Like I'll follow. What do I got to do to make this right? Like you immediately want to. I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
But then my cynic does kick in, and I go, this feels like what a scammer would say.
Yeah.
But you helped me, John, today.
Again, that's not the first time I helped you in the last few weeks.
You know what I like to do right now, John, is offer some help to our fine listeners via our fine sponsors who help us by helping us keep the lights on one more week here on Talk About That. Let's take a minute and hear from some of our fine sponsors.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, you called me. Mm-hmm. This is a bad day for you.
Yeah.
Like you're heading out. You and Courier have 5 minutes to leave for the airport.
Right.
And you're like, dude.
We were at the airport when I called you, but I was like, I have left a mess.
It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, I walked out of my garage and I have this, what was it, a garden cart or something?
I have like a garden cart, like a wheelbarrow basically. It's a plastic garden cart. And it is full to the brim with water. There's a little bit of water on the ground. There's no water on the walls, no water on the ceiling. Just this thing was full of water. The only closest water source would be my water heater, which is like 3 feet away.
Yeah.
And I go, okay.
What happened?
And it's dripping a little bit from like it looks like condensation coming off of something.
But that's nothing.
But it's not arcing water. It's not still actively spraying water. And I go, what is going on? And we had to leave. I mean, I'm leaving for tour, and I go, I'm going to shut the main off.
Yeah.
Just thinking like, this will help keep this from exploding while
this
I'm
is
gone.
a very midlife story, by the way.
Yeah, it is. This feels like it's a very old story. First, I'm getting scammed by people.
Oh my God.
I'm getting fished or whatever, and now I'm telling a great water heater story. A rivet. Please don't drive your car into a guardrail. If you're listening to this, I apologize. But it was a mystery because it's like the whole those old stories you'd hear. Like a man's hanging and there's just a puddle of water and you go, oh, he was stabbed with an icicle or whatever. That's how I felt.
I think he was standing on an ice block.
Maybe. Anyway, all I'm saying...
He was hanging and stabbed?
No, you feel like, okay, you find a guy, he's dead, and all you see is a puddle of water. Like, how did he die? He was stabbed with an icicle. That's the mystery. But I didn't have time to do the, Detective Monk and spend half a day in my garage, figuring out why the water was there. I had to go to catch a plane. So I left, and I was just like, I'll figure it out when we get home. But I'm still, like, ruminating over it. And then I realized I've left the water heater boiler on, like the burner. And that's probably not safe. So I called you and said, hey, this is what's going on. Will you at least go please turn my burner off? Will you go over and you start doing your Detective Monk?
Yeah.
You're looking. But by then, I've moved the cart. I've dumped the water out. So you didn't have the full scene.
Right.
I've moved things around. You didn't get to see.
Yeah, you did mess with the crime scene.
You didn't get to do your real,
Right. Forensic analysis.
You didn't do it. Assessment of the scene. So I was like, whatever. But you saved me because you said, I've got a plumber, he'll whatever. And we caught him on a good day, and he came out while I was gone.
Best guy ever.
And he fixed it all. He goes, this was your expansion tank. You have too much pressure coming into the house, so your pressure gauge failed. And your expansion tank, which is kind of built to make the water heater not explode, evidently. Right. It's like a little fail-safe. It ruptured. And the water inside it arced for like however long.
Into the cart.
Like a fountain, I guess.
Yeah.
Into that cart, caught all the water, and then I don't know how it shut off because it did. We had hot water that morning. Again, it's a plumbing mystery.
It really is. Well, and I was on the phone with him while he was assessing.
Yeah.
And he was like, why is there dust coming out of the ceiling? I was like, oh, wait, got it. And it wasn't dust. It was mist coming out of that crack.
Right.
And he was like, I see what happened. And I was like, wow.
But why did my cart catch all the water? It was wild. So my basement didn't flood.
Isn't that just like our lives?
Some of y'all are out here, and you need to be the cart that catches the arcing problems of your...
Some of y'all think it's dust, but it's just water, man.
Yeah. Some of y'all need to build an expansion tank, because what you're doing is, without that, you're not protecting your life from what the real damage could be.
Oh, come on now.
The Holy Spirit's that expansion tank. I don't know.
You had me till...
I know. But anyway, he comes out, he goes, I see him, because I can tell when my garage door is opening and closing, so I'm like watching it. Again, this is a very old person. We're like monitoring it. And I'm like, he's there, and I look in the driveway. I see this truck I don't know, and I'm like, man, this is such an interesting level of trust because, like, he has access to my stuff.
Yeah.
He has a look, Then I see him leave again, and then you text me. You go, he's going to get parts. I go, okay. And again, I'm just like, all right, whatever it costs. He comes back, and then he didn't even text me for a long time. I was like, and he goes, John, you go, it's fixed. I go, what? And then I go, tell the guy I'll pay him, send me an invoice. I'm not trying to get a freebie because he's your buddy or whatever. So he charged me quite a bit. No, it was actually very fair. It was like more than fair. For his time and energy, it was unbelievable. Yeah. I got to figure out, like you told me, you need to get him tickets to. I'm like, all right, how about tickets to my show?
Yeah, your show.
No, that's not what you said, though. You were like, you need to get him tickets to one of Nate's shows. I was like, hey, I dabble in comedy, too, over here.
I didn't know if it might feel pretentious for you to give someone tickets to your own, just like giving someone, you know what, your reward is one of John Driver's books. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. You're right.
So, and my books are way better than your shows.
Yeah. Nate's tickets are expensive, too. Forget that. No.
You know what? I apologize, because when I said that, I thought,
yeah,
that sounds like I'm trying to tell you, and it wasn't. I was just trying to think you wouldn't want to give away your own, because I know how you are.
Yeah.
You'd be like it. Now, if you have a lineup of a bunch of people,
yeah,
that'd be fun,
I'm going to be in a lineup if this scam wasn't a scam. The guy's going to come, hey, by the way.
Oh my God!
What if you were on him and like, I'll connect you to Officer Pembroke right now?
Oh yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we're on the line with your buddy. He's being pretty obstinate.
Well, I was kind of wondering. They're like, yeah, don't mess with him or whatever.
Yeah, he's a man. That was man. Okay, so anyway, all that said, the plumbing got fixed, and John saved me once again. You were a friend of all friends, although you didn't stay with him, and you
had to go to.
You didn't hang out.
I couldn't. I had to be in Murfreesboro at like 4. So. Sorry, it wasn't enough.
So you chose your kid.
I did.
Over me.
I did. I chose.
My house could have been flooded, though.
I went and checked.
Okay.
And then I knew everything was okay. I was glad our guy could come out, because he really is the best. So
I wish.
And I'm not going to promote him, because I don't think he wants to do all this.
Well, what if we give him a free, we plug his plumbing company on the show, and that's like what we're doing, sponsor dollars.
The amount of business he would get would overwhelm him.
Yeah.
So much. I'm not sure he's up for it.
What is the company?
I don't know the name of his company. I just know his name.
He sent it.
But you may not need to say it. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
He does a lot of other stuff. And
he doesn't want.
I don't know if he wants this kind of.
He doesn't want like a bunch of people calling him for their
for just
emergencies.
This. He does a lot of remodels and other things.
He wants like big money. He doesn't want like every time somebody's expansion tank ruptures.
That's just what he does.
I got to come running because of your radio ad. Well, his name was Chris. Chris, if you're listening, thanks very much.
Yeah.
And you saved me. I feel like I want to do more.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
When I called him, he goes, were your ears just burning? I was like, no. And so he was going to call me or send me a text later that day.
Because you missed jury duty.
Because I missed jury. I couldn't believe it.
I've got a summons here. It says you signed it.
You owe me $400 now. And he had taken his kids, really great conversation about his kids and screens and books. And he started taking his kids to McKay's, which is the used bookstore.
Great.
You've been to McKay's.
Love McKay's.
And so he bought like 20 books.
Yeah.
He's just, to go. And he's looking through them, and he comes across a book called Not So Black and White.
Oh, right.
By Reggie Dabbs and John Driver. He's like, what? He turns it over, and my face is there.
He's like, what woke nonsense is this?
He
threw it right in the garbage.
He said,
did you ask what the price tag was on the book?
No,
you
had
didn't ask?
It had to be 99 cents or whatever.
No, John. No, McKay's has some books that are whatever. It's not necessarily always bargain bin. It was discounted because it's McKay's thing. It's used.
It's funny. I told him, I said, you don't have to read the book. Like I always tell him, you don't have to read this. There's no I'm not going to follow up later. Hey,
let's do a little, ask for like a report, do a book report.
It was great.
But that's a great connection. Well, you saved me. And it was one of those things where you feel so ill at ease when you're leaving a problem, especially an undiagnosed, like what really happened problem. And so I felt, I don't know. It made me feel even better than the anti-anxiety medication that I had to take. I felt... I was watching. There's I feel like these medicines, by the way, we're running out of names. Have you noticed the weird names now?
Yeah.
Like I wrote a few of them down. Zeljans.
That's real?
Dude. Come on, dude. Zeljans?
Really?
Yeah. Skyrizi. Come on.
I've seen Skyrizi on the commercials.
And they always have to have control is everything
dancing
to me.
That's happening, yeah.
It's a little pill with a big story to tell, or what? You're like, well, okay, just stop it. It's for kidney failure. What are we? They're dancing. You're like, these people's kidneys are working great. Well, yeah, because they're on, whatever.
Skyrizi.
Tremfya or whatever. Tremfya is my favorite.
The one where all the stuff falls off of them.
I want so bad for them to do an ad where Alicia Keys is like, "This pill is trim fire." Why is that not happening?
No kidding.
This pill is trim fire. They asked her. They had to have asked her. Well, that's 3 sponsors we won't get now.
No.
Because we're making fun of Zell-Jans.
What's the one?
Zell-Jans sounds like a Superman villain.
There's one. They've redone an old song, and it's perfect. Oh, what is it?
Oh, it's, well, Ozempic was.
Ozempic.
Ozempic. So catchy.
Yeah, I wonder what the royalty.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, that is interesting.
Be.
I mean, they would, if your drug, your song that was like a huge runaway hit in whatever decade that was, is now going to be associated with this, whatever. At that point, it was a diabetes medication, which now is being used for weight loss. But it's like, I would want a good payday for that. Yeah. Probably. I'd be like, all right, now I'm going to be the Ozempic guy. But I mean, if it was one of our old songs, I'd be like, what do you got? What's in your pocket?
Yeah. Let's make a deal. Speaking of, we had a friend with not only is he up for a Grammy.
Yes.
But his band, who we know the members of or former members of.
You act like you're trying to be secretive. Just say
his
the
band
thing.
Loyals.
Okay, yes.
Had a song on one of the playoff games the other day.
I want to ask, did you ever ask him, like, did he know that was going to happen? He acted so surprised by it. Can they do that?
Yeah, they can sync. It's called television sync.
So he already had like a sync license that was an understood thing if they decided to use it.
Someone's just out there, and it's like probably in some big database, and they picked that song.
I wonder if he'll get money, though.
Sure.
You think there's money coming?
Yeah.
Wow, that's good stuff.
I don't know how much.
Yeah, but
hopefully a lot.
Not nothing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
That's the same guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so you guys can put this all together.
Right.
Who wrote the theme song for Talk About That.
Yeah, if you hear our great theme, that's Dane Allen, who plays with Disciple, plays with Honor and Glory, and his band Loyals was featured on Sunday Night Football.
And in many ways, this is like a Michael Scott moment.
Yeah.
Remember Dwight has the big speech?
Yeah.
Like, Dwight captivated 1,000 people in a room, and I captivated the guy who captivated 1,000 people.
Exactly.
So some might say that it was our song, Jonnie. I don't know how.
And what would Dane be without our instruction in his young life?
Now, I will say...
Would he have gone on to be what he is now?
Do you know?
Probably.
I did show
probably be a little less anxious.
I did show him his first guitar chord when he was 12.
I don't want to be...
And in like a week, he was better than me in a week.
Yeah, he was already, and he could sing. I don't want to be this guy, but Dane is playing a guitar on tour that I gave him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like, I gave him the Blue Ridge guitar that he plays because I was given on tour. I was on tour with Tim, and he started letting me play one of his McPhersons, which is like a $10,000 guitar that I would never, ever play or afford. And I was like, look at me, McPherson. So I had my Blue Ridge, and I was like, I felt immediately like I need to give this to Dane because he was playing worship at the church. So I gave him the Blue Ridge. And then Tim came back to me like a year and a half later and was like, hey, I need that Blue Ridge, or I need that McPherson back. And I was just like, this wasn't for keepsies? And then so I was like, well, now do I go to Dane and be like, hey,
I don't need that Blue Ridge back.
Gives these backsies. And so instead I went and got a Martin, which became like my favorite guitar. So no harm, no foul. But Dane is still playing that Blue Ridge, and to much acclaim.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that it wouldn't matter what the guitar was. Yeah. But I say...
No, there's no way he would be doing what he's doing if I had not
just a regular guitar.
And I didn't even want credit. Like, I would never even mention it.
This isn't something we would even say out loud.
No.
Because...
saying it on this show is almost not saying it out loud. Wouldn't you say?
It's going...
It's out. You know what? Our downloads are up and our uploads are down.
Come on now.
I want that for each. We do appreciate our new listeners. John, how would you become a patron of the show?
Well, you go to talkaboutthatpodcast.com.
That's how you get ad-free content. If you click on that upper right-hand link, that's how you support the show. We love our supporters. Thanks so much. We need to do more for you guys, but we want to say a special thank you. Yeah. You didn't save us from plumbing disasters, but you also didn't scam us and say that we have jury duty.
You didn't give us a guitar.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But that's okay. We didn't win any Grammys.
We don't need a guitar. Yeah, we have guitars.
We have them already.
We have everything we possibly could need, except for maybe more supporters. Yeah. So spread the word that A, there's a jury duty scam. Don't fall for it.
Don't do it.
B, support the show at talkaboutthatpodcast.com. Over 300 archived episodes as well. John, it's time for your segment.
I think it's time.
It's way past time. John's quote of the week, we call it, They talked about that. Just hijack your intro.
I liked it. Carl Jung, spelled Jung.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jung.
He was Swiss.
Isn't that the different philosophies of modern psychotherapy are you're Jungian or you are Freudian.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it goes, right?
Yeah, they're kind of, I think, contemporaries.
Do I blame my mother or do I blame myself? Or what is that? What's Jungian? Anyway,
he's going to be more...
The quote will tell me probably all I need to know. Okay.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So he used the big deal about like your conscious, like the things you're consciously doing and unconsciously doing, like are determining the course of your life. And you got to unlock that stuff.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is one of those, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you could become so, what do they call it? Introspective navel-gazing, right? You spend your time staring at things.
It's like crippling.
Right. But at the same time, and I believe it was, John Calvin, who basically said, without knowledge of self, there is no knowledge of God.
Yeah.
But without knowledge of God, there is no knowledge of self.
Yeah.
And so like this idea of self-awareness within the sphere of faith gives you this, and I even talk about this, it gives you something to do with this idea, to me at least. I always talk about self-control being one of the fruits of the Spirit. So like the Spirit giving you something, and one of the things he gives you is your ability to give yourself control. I mean, so it's an interesting idea to me about self-knowledge. I see a therapist. I know if you got your bingo card, all the stuff here, right? I see a therapist. I've studied the Enneagram. I've done 12-step recovery, all those things. And I told you even today at lunch, like none of those things like fixed everything.
Right.
Right. There are moments where you feel like, wow, I've really made a step. And there's always there's no bottom to self. There's no bottom like, well, okay, this is all done. But those tools... to be able to be like, hey, do I know what I'm doing? One, forget the why. I think sometimes we don't even know what we're doing. People don't.
We fall into a pattern or whatever.
Yeah, you don't recognize the things or how it's affecting, but to know then why I am doing it. And one of the things that really speaks to me is internal family systems. And there's a book I wrote with Jeff and Beth McCord. Called More Than Your Number, and they apply internal family systems to the Enneagram, where you develop your Enneagram internal profile. That you can kind of understand that there's different types based upon your primary type. But this idea of I have parts, I'm complex, I'm not just one thing.
Yeah.
And that's really important when shame is a problem, because I think what we want to do is we want to assume the problem is me. And that's not, I believe, what the kind of self-awareness is that's good. If you come away with, of course the problem's you, right? I mean, we understand I'm the common denominator of every problem in my life. And from a grace perspective, I can say I'm the problem without falling into such a shame or such a crushing blow that I don't want to try anymore, because what's the point? That's Christ knows I'm the problem, paid for the problem. Now I'm restored and I can begin to deal with the problem without the shame of being 100% paying the price for the problem. I mean, that's the gospel in a nutshell. But the idea that I'm complex and that there are things within me happening that are related to circumstance, that are related to experience, maybe related to, and this is a hard word, I would say little t trauma, right? Or big T trauma. And I know everybody wants to call everything trauma now, and I know there's a little bit of backlash to all the therapy language that I think probably is well deserved in places.
Well, yeah, because some people have just weaponized it for years, and so now it's like the pendulum's kind of going the other way. But I hope it doesn't keep people from seeking help that they need. For true trauma.
Well, I mean, I think good therapy and self-awareness leads you to want to change, and it leads you to want to own the only things that you can. Right? I mean, that's the serenity prayer, right? I have to know what I can do and what I cannot.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, too, that, like, we who believe in that God created us and that we're so complex physically, and, when physiologists will say that there's so many millions of things going on inside one human cell or whatever. We go, oh, this is how intricate the system that God made.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our minds, we tend to not think about that as complex. We want it to be simple. We just go, hey, suck it up.
Yeah.
Hey, don't be Don't be somebody that just blames. Don't have a victim mentality. You go, no, I've experienced all of this, and it feels like I can't get over this.
Yeah.
Well, you're just, I don't know. I don't know if we can work with this. We don't allow for that same level of complexity when it comes to like people's mental stuff. And so I think the church has got a ways to go with that stuff as far as like wrapping our head around like, no, people are super different in the way they approach life and the way that, like you said, the way their family raised them, that can affect things, but just the way we look at the world is so different than each other. And we got to accept that, and we got to make allowances for it as much as we can.
Yeah. And I think do the work. And I do like that expression. I think if those therapeutic things, if you're trying to make the unconscious conscious, then you will see it as a good kind of work. And I love the idea that I don't just want to act like the world's happening to me. The world is happening to me, but I'm also happening to the world. Mm-hmm. And I can't necessarily control how the world happens to me, but I can control some aspects of how I happen to the world, of how I show up to it. And when I think we all fall into victim mentality. There are those, listen, anybody who's crying, don't be a victim. Like, you'll find something in their life where you could touch one little tiny button and they would cry, this is unjust or whatever. And so, I mean, everybody has that feeling somewhere, whether they're aware of it, again, to the point of Carl Jung, whether you're aware of it or not. But if that awareness leads me to say, okay, I want to show up differently, I want to think differently. And we said that a lot in Not So Black and White, that we didn't really talk just about all the stuff that was happening with racism. We really talked about whether or not the gospel calls you to be willing to change the way that you think about things. And we, that's what the Bible says, don't be conformed to the world, but be renewed in the spirit of your mind, right? So, and NLT, I think, says, let God change you by transforming the way you think. I'm not quoting that word for word.
Yeah, no, it's good. I do think it's interesting too that like John Calvin had a quote like that about knowing yourself, whereas it almost feels like we're through the looking glass today, where if some preacher said that now, we'd be like, oh, here we go with this humanism. Yeah. It's like, no, like C.S. Lewis.
Oh yeah.
All these guys were about like understanding yourself is a part of understanding the gospel. Like it's okay to look at ourselves. Self-care is okay, you guys. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, I think there's an idea of like self-preservation when it gets in the way of the gospel. Okay, I'll give you that. We're supposed to be philanthropic. We're supposed to lay down our lives. But this idea that I have to just fall on my sword every day, and this is what being a good soldier of the cross means. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily what we're called to. An unhealthy, toxic way.
If you think about it, if a lot of the gospel narrative, right, we hear in the modern age church narrative would be self-denial, right, is the key.
Yeah.
And I would argue, I would agree, and I would also argue the more of yourself that you actually understand and know, then you know when you're denying, the more you're able to deny. Like, I'm able now to go, okay, I know why this triggers me, and I'm still choosing a different, and as opposed to, I don't know why this triggers, this just sucks, and I'm just going to do it or not do it. Like, the more that I know, the more I can direct those things. But if you don't really know yourself, then you're going to be limited in how much you can deny because you don't understand what you're denying. You'll still have reactive tendencies as opposed to proactive tendencies. You'll still be, constantly, well, I hate to use the word, but you're a victim to what happens to you.
Yeah.
And as opposed to going, okay, I know it's controlling, but now I have some empowerment here. And I think in the gospel, a humble empowerment, right? To know my limitations. To know your limitations is power.
Yeah.
Right? If to know your the best boxers are the ones, they're not always the strongest.
Right.
They know if I'm smaller, but I'm faster, I know my limitations. I'm not going to let this dude's right hook take me out. I'm going to know my limitations are giving me the power to stay in this fight because I'm aware of them. So,
yeah, I think we did it. I think we fixed.
I thought we did it last time, but apparently there was more.
All we need now is people who will lay down their lives in a civic duty that we call jury duty. It's time. Guys, don't listen. If you get a summons, first of all, if you sign it, please remember that you signed it. If you didn't sign it, and you get a phone call, don't take that phone call.
If you signed it, that means you mailed it back in.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time you signed something and mailed it off? It's been a minute.
I guess it's been a couple months because that's what this guy said. He wouldn't. He's no reason to lie.
That's one thing I said. To ask him what the date was. What's the date? You were yelling.
Yeah, I know. John was giving me all that. He was feeding me.
I was mad, guys. You do not want to mess. You do not.
You were my Johnny Cochran. I appreciate it. You were there for me in a big way. John, let's do my segments. First one's Johnny's old jokes. We call it Joke About That. John, a couple turned up at a fancy dress party. The man giving the girl a piggyback. The man's face was painted green, and he had a red mask over his eyes. So, what have you come as? Asked the host. I'm one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, said the man. And what about her? Asked the host, indicating the girl. That's Michelle.
Michelle.
That's Michelle. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that one. An insurance salesman is visiting a remote farmstead. I love when people go to farmsteads in jokes. You know, there's always the farmer's daughter trope. You meet an old farmer. He's working on a truck. He teaches you something about life. The city slicker's always kind of vested in a way. So a lot of good street jokes and old jokes start in a farmstead. An insurance salesman's visiting a remote farmstead, John. He parks at the foot of the driveway and walks up to the house to find an old Labrador lying on the porch. As he tries to step over it, it speaks. Watch where you're stepping, buddy. The salesman almost faints with shock. You can talk? Yeah, sure, says the dog. I've made a pretty good career out of it. Intrigued, the salesman asked to hear more. Well, says the dog, it all began in 1981. My owner found out about this gift I had. It turned me into a traveling sideshow. Of course, all I had to do was simple skits, a few words, a couple of jokes. It was pretty beneath me. But it paid well. And then I was spotted by some government types and got recruited by the CIA. They taught me to speak Russian, and I was infiltrated into the secret bases all over the Soviet Union. I mean, who's going to suspect a dog, right? I was the most effective source of intelligence throughout the Union. The entire Cold War hinged on this. I can't tell you how many times I saved the world with my timely intel. After the Cold War ended, I got moved to the FBI, rooting out terrorist cells. Same gig, different bad guys. In the end, after becoming the FBI's most decorated agent, I was retired. I had my pick of the lady dogs as they tried to breed a successor with my gift, but I guess I'm just unique, so I ended up in retirement here, filling my days in comfort and peace. The salesman practically bursting at this. Just then, the farmer emerges from the farmhouse. How much do you want for this incredible dog? Yells the salesman. I'll pay any price, the farmer spits. You can have him for nothing. The salesman's even more flabbergasted. How can you give away such an incredible animal? A talking dog with such an amazing story? The farmer laughs. Because he's a dang liar. He ain't never did any of that stuff. It's a great joke. That's
great.
Like it's a great. Yeah, that's a funny one. John, let's do my final segment. We always wrap it up with This Week in History. We call it Talk About Then. John, this week in 1946, the Central Intelligence Group is established by U.S. President, John, 46?
46, Truman.
Harry S. Truman. This was later replaced by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. 2 days later, though, Truman gave staff members black cloaks, black hats, and wooden daggers, calling them a cloak and dagger group of snoopers.
Wow.
So is that where we get the cloak and dagger, or was he just being like, I know it's called cloak and dagger, I'm going to give you actual
That's
cloaks and
question.
daggers. Which came first?
The cloak or the dagger?
The cloak or the egg. John, this week, 1973, George Foreman won the title. He won his first heavyweight title match by stopping Joe Frazier with a second-round knockout. I always think this is funny, and my buddy Mike Goodwin, who's a comedian, does a bit about this, about how kids know people from our childhood for different things. Like if you go on to live in celebrity culture,
right?
Like he'll talk about how what a bad man Shaquille O'Neal was. Like Shaq was a bad man. You never want to mess with Shaq. And his kid will be like, the Papa John's guy? You know? And so like George Foreman's one of those guys, like one of the hardest punchers ever. And yet he's known for the grill. For the grill. He's known for like standing there in an apron talking about how the fat drains right off.
Burning Michael Scott's foot. He literally made it onto The Office.
Yeah. He burned Michael Scott's foot. John, this week, 1977, the TV miniseries Roots began airing on ABC for 8 consecutive nights. The story of Kunta Kinte, LeVar Burton, and his descendants. This is why I put it on the list. It drew 130 million viewers for its conclusion, making it the highest-rated TV program up to that time. The series received 37 Primetime Emmy Award nominations. Winning 9, it is considered the first blockbuster miniseries. Miniseries were a big deal when we were... Now I guess you would just do a Netflix, you would call it a limited series, or you'd have like a season.
Right.
But miniseries was like a tune in next week for the next, you know, little snippet of this, and you'd have to like hold on.
Uh-huh.
And 130 million. I just started thinking, like, when is the last thing that 130 million people did at the same time?
Like a Super Bowl or something, probably.
Yeah, that would probably be it.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't know if it's is it 130 million for this? I don't know what the Super Bowl gets as far as a rating, but
I usually they give me reports, but you
don't get them anymore. I'm sorry, the Nielsen. John, this week, 1983. Speaking of TV, the TV show The A-Team debuted on NBC. The show was about 4 members of a fictitious United States Army Special Forces unit who were tried and convicted for a crime.
Wait, they were fictitious?
They had not committed. They escaped, avoiding jury duty. They escaped and began working as soldiers of fortune, which is illegal, while trying. We didn't do the thing.
We're
going to be
mercenaries
and do all these weird.
But they're always helping people.
That we know of, while still trying to clear their names and avoid capture by law enforcement and military authorities. The team consisted of John Hannibal Smith, Face Man Dirk Benedict, who's the good-looking, slick guy. Howlin' Mad Murdoch, a crazy person.
Yeah.
And the team strongman, B.A. Baracus, Mr. T.
Yeah.
This was a golden age of television. And maybe it's just because I was a kid then, but it feels like you had something.
The van would just jump ramps.
Mr. T driving the van.
And they always would end up in a warehouse somewhere that happened to just have all this welding equipment and stuff. And the guys are on their way to kill them, but it's a good thing we held up in this warehouse completely stocked with everything we need now to make a tank or whatever.
They play some inspirational music montage while they just build. It's basically Iron Man. Remember, the plot of Iron Man is basically an episode of the A-Team because he's trapped in a cave, but he's got all the stuff to fix his heart somehow.
Guys, but here's the thing. You can't fix your own heart.
No.
But you know what you can do?
What's that?
Weld a metal suit. Wait
a minute. Some of y'all are in a cave right now.
Some of y'all
need to come out.
Come out of the cave.
Some of y'all are afraid to fly like B.A., but you need to not be afraid because what's going to happen is Hannibal's going to put drugs in your milk and you're just going to be on the plane with Jesus. That's not...
Listen,
I've gotten off my notes.
God loves it when a plan comes together.
He does.
The plan he had for you.
Oh, man, he does. Okay, John, finally. Born this week, 1920, Fred Morrison, inventor of the Frisbee.
Oh.
He invented the Frisbee in 1937, so he would have been 17. He got the idea when someone offered to buy the cake pan he and his future wife were tossing back and forth at the beach.
Huh.
That's a great invention story.
Yeah.
You're just bored. First of all, you're at the ocean. You're like, this is nothing.
Throw this pie tin.
Let's just throw a cake pan back and forth to each other like lunatics. And then somebody offered to buy it. They're like, that looks like a lot of fun. He's like, actually, we've hit a lot of people in the head. We've caused
this is a metal
many concussions. By the way, this is an interesting part of his story. He was also a prisoner of the infamous Stalag 13 in World War II. Huh. So this guy's a war hero.
Interesting. This does take away my origin story of the Frisbee, which is from Back to the Future 3.
Or is that what you thought?
Where they're back in the 1880s and he throws the Frisbee and hits the guy in the hand right before, and there's a pie tin. Oh, he picks it up, it's a Frisbee pie tin. He's like, Frisbee, one of those things. And then
But it really was a pie tin from the original story, so how do you like that?
It just wasn't used to save Marty McFly.
It wasn't Marty McFly or
Doc. What's his last name?
Doc's... I can't remember.
What's his name? Jonnie.
I know.
Have we stumped Jonnie on a really major character?
I know. I mean, this is...
Who's the actor?
Christopher Lloyd.
Okay.
But I don't... Emmett
Brown.
Brown. Doc Brown.
Thank you. Our powers combined, we got there.
I tell you what. Why did I know the first name?
That's okay.
It's because in part 3, he's Emmett because the Mary Steenburgen's character's in love with him. And she's like, Emmett. Yeah. She's a very high-pitched, whiny timbre to her.
Remember, she's in Elf, and she sings at the end.
Yes.
And has that high-pitched kind of
it's
like she knows my voice. She knows she can't sing and sings Santa Claus Coming
She's
Down
a great
anyway.
character actress. Mary Steenburgen, fantastic. Yeah. And we don't have it. She's not on the list today. It's not her birthday or anything.
No, and she's not.
We just want to recognize, not a sponsor. Yeah. We just want to recognize her and say, you've missed jury duty. And please get...
The Wilson County Sheriff is fastidiously flowing to your house right now in a line of cars. Full emergency traffic.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
By the way, somebody said this the other day. At the end of Back to the Future 1, when Doc Brown shows up and he's in the future car and he's in the weird goggles and all the stuff, and he goes, "It's not you, Marty. It's your kids. Something's got to be done about your kids."
Right.
Why couldn't he have just gone back further and fixed that?
Right. He went back. He went back to the point he thought sent them. He tried to. He says that. He explains it, I think. He tried to pinpoint the moment he thinks it all went south.
Yeah.
But he could have gone a little further back, where they weren't in such a hurry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We got to do it right now. Hurry! You got to do it before. Just go back 2 days before.
Right.
Well, you know why he didn't do that?
Why?
Because he didn't want Marty to be in the future for so long that he affected it. And he did. The longer he was there, that's what he said. See, it's all coming together. It's really well written.
My favorite part about those movies, I can remember there's a conversation we were having at Back to the Future the other day, because somebody had like a model of something. And I always love how he built these intricate models of like, I mean, it's to the, I mean, everything's on it. The hook is on the car works, all of it. And he goes, "I apologize for the crudity of this model." It's so funny. It's such a perfect model.
Perfectly
It's such a funny, subtle Spielberg joke to make.
Yeah.
I love it. Anyway, those are classics. And if you haven't seen them.
Wait, was that Spielberg?
Well, Spielberg produced, Robert Zemeckis directed.
Yeah, Zemeckis.
Yeah, but I think it was Spielberg was involved in Back to the Future. Was he
maybe.
not?
He may be an executive producer.
Maybe not. But that was a very 80s sensibility, that sense of humor that's in those jokes. That gag of like a scientist making a perfect model and saying, "I apologize for the crudity of this model."
That's perfect.
It's got the perfect wire.
So
he attaches jumper cables to it. It sends the perfect amount of electricity. Just, it's funny.
Every car is positioned on the street appropriately.
Yeah, it's just great. John, it's a good one though. I don't know. Go see Back to the Future. Stop what you're doing, drop it all, go watch those 3 movies with your kids.
I tried with my kid. It just didn't take. She was younger.
She didn't like Back to the Future?
Work. I think that the plot developments are so much slower in those movies than the kids are used to today.
I don't like that though.
Well, I'm going to try maybe another time, but I keep thinking. But
we have there's a piece of AI software that'll make clips for our podcast. Mm-hmm. They're not a sponsor, so we're not going to promote it. But we started tinkering with it. And one of the things it will do, which a lot of clips that you see from podcasts, I've noticed, it'll take the ums and the breaths and like what you would call useless, let's get to the point kind of a thing, which seems good. But I wonder if after 10 years of watching clips like that, if Sadie's generation is going to be like not able to have a conversation that doesn't just go a mile a minute and doesn't have any breaths in it. Because they just learned to talk that way.
The pausing, like I'm
smash cut a conversation, basically. You can't, you have no time for this.
Yeah, I've been hired to do a story production thing. I'm doing some video work. And that's one of the things they were like, you could just read the script to put this in the order.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but there's so much more that may be communicated by someone who's not saying as much.
Right.
Right. It's particularly in the
Have we lost
field.
that's a whole podcast for another day, is like, have we lost our, patience with pausing for effect?
Yeah.
Like if somebody's doing a talk and they go, and they take off their glasses, we go, "This guy, boring." Do we not understand that's a moment? He's trying to make a moment there.
I feel when I listen to the podcast sometimes, it takes me longer to get there than I feel like it should. But I also don't want to, I want to measure my words. Right. There's sentences, like I just did, there's sentences that I don't finish.
Well, we also are lazy. We don't like editing the podcast.
No.
So we just try to like.
Well, I can have AI go edit it.
While we're talking, we go, "Not going to say that." Like in our head, we're going, "Not doing that."
Yeah, but I think that's what makes it authentic.
Do you?
Well, that's the word you use when you have a subpar product that you don't want to edit.
It's so authentic. Is it good? Well, it's real.
It's real. It's good as in the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm. It is.
You know what, beholders? We're so glad that you gave us your time and we thought it was good.
It's a new nickname for our listeners, the Beholders.
Yeah.
Sounds like a 50s rock band, maybe.
You have beheld, and now we want you to go to our website.
And put some eyes on that and talk about that podcast.com, like we said. Over 300 archived episodes. Send us a note if you'd like to at hello@talkaboutthatpodcast.com.
Got to say it. If you're going to write it, you got to say
all caps.
That's right. You should check out Jonnie W, JONNIEW.com. Lots of new tour dates coming up all the time. You should go see him live. It really is an amazing experience.
Yeah, we actually have a show. I have a live taping coming up this weekend in Marietta, Georgia. A few tickets left for the 8 o'clock show. That's Sunday, the 26th. So if you're around the North Georgia area, Atlanta, Marietta, Alpharetta, all those weird Eddas, come say hello and see some of my new stuff that I'm taping this weekend.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for the time you gave us today. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this episode, and I hope you did too. We'll see you next week here on
about that.